Thank you very much, Nick. Yeah, it makes me nervous having Douthit here. He's also my attorney, and I'm being billed as we speak. So opening up an office here in Westfield, I mean, that's great, but who's paying for it? That's what I thought. Good to have you here. Thank you all so much for being here. I see now why the chamber wanted to move it to January, because what the heck else is there to do in January? So there isn't anything else, so you got to show up here. But thank you. That is, it's a real pleasure to see so many new people here, just from all across the sector and our businesses and all. And this whole show, if you will, it's going to be a little different this year. You know, usually we mayors get up and we talk about all the things we have done, and we're going to do just a little bit about that. And we're going to talk about some stuff that's much more important and much more impactful on this community, building on some things that frankly we've already done. But I also would like to thank the Bridgewater people, Michael Gardner and Paula and Mallory and her crew just have always done such a fantastic job of squeezing in more people than they want. But we get it done. That and the yellow tie ball really tests them. It's kind of fun. But thank you to the chamber, Nick and your people, Missy and all. You've just done a wonderful job. Look at the new members you brought in. But also to my three ladies, to Jacqueline Hines and Sarah Benzinger, for all their creativeness in this, and especially to our communications director, Vicki Duncan Gardner. They're the ones that make this whole thing work. And to start off, I mean, what's going to be different is I really want to talk about where this city's going. And the word legacy really, really hits home. Remember, 2 or 3 years ago, I asked a question of this group, how big of a city do you want to be? And what I got back, most of the feedback said, you know, in all due respect to Noblesville or Carmel and Fishers, and we don't want to be that big. And I think that this administration and our council clearly hears that. The question that we asked, I think it was last year, was, okay, what can we do today to ensure this city is as viable in 30 years as it is today? Because I remember talking, we see suburbs are sometimes 30-year flashes in the pan, right? They become irrelevant as growth disappears. Very important that we leave a legacy of what we can do today. Now, you were introduced to some cut-out caricatures out in the hallways, where you began to get the theme of what's going on here. And we have, where is Francisco? Here he is. Francisco joined us several years ago. His wife is a key member of our youth assistance program. But live, Francisco, why Westfield?
Well, thank you, Mayor. Again, my name is Francisco Contreras. I came to Westfield back in 1999, here to Westfield from Mexico City. I've worked for the city of Westfield for 2.5 years now. I'm also a research deputy for the Hamilton County Sheriff's Office. But why Westfield? That's a great question. I don't know.
And you work for the city.
But no, Westfield has been so great to myself and my family. I remember going to the food pantries, especially the one on Jersey Street and Union, back when there was that old firehouse there. Student Impact was a big help to me growing up. Teachers cannot express how much they helped me, but Westfield has been in my heart that I love so much that now I help it build the city. I'm an inspector for infrastructure, so I get to be on the new subdivisions and on all the good stuff. But compassion, so that's my theme for today. Let me read you the dictionary, what it says for compassion. It is a feeling of deep sympathy and sorrow for another who is stricken by misfortune accompanied by a strong desire to alleviate the suffering. So Westfield has been very compassionate to myself and my family. I believe it is, and therefore it will continue to be compassionate because Westfield is its people. So thank you, Westfield.
None other than Danielle Easterhouse. You all know her. You can't do anything in this city without running into the purple hair. It's beautiful.
Freshly purple.
But that's freshly, I noticed that. But here's another one. What Danielle has accomplished for our kids is, well, to me, it's beyond description.
When I was asked the question, what does Westfield mean to me, it's the spirit of the community. I mean, where else can you go in the world where when a kid needs a pair of shoes, that I can post it online and I've got 10 pairs at my door in an hour? The people of Westfield care. The people of Westfield give. The people of Westfield are lovers of kindness. The people of Westfield have given not just to Francisco and his family, but to every individual. We don't care here what you look like, what you smell like, because my kids at Student Impact, the smell. And y'all still love them. We got some teenage spirit going on there. So Westfield cares. And not only does it care, it gives with all its heart. I can't do what I do at Student Impact without the people here in this room. I'm looking around and I see people that gave me a freezer, and people that gave me shoes, and people that bought me clothes, and people that bought Kind bars for me. And that I can look through this room and tell you the gift of caring, the spirit of Westfield is alive and well. I expect it to get better, Mayor. I gotta be honest. It's gonna continue. That's what Westfield means to me.
Thank you, Danielle, and those of you who may not be familiar with Student Impact, she has a little, too little of a house, just about a block from the high school and the school campus where many of our children end up after school because they need a hug. And they may not be getting it at home, maybe they don't get it at school. It's a house of hugs, and I mean that in a very good way. And her ministry that she does there is a huge part of what we're doing in Westfield, and it's about to get bigger. So, yeah, you know, I've talked about this before. I love to ask, why did you come to Westfield? And I ask that of every new person or family that I meet. And I think there's some cards on the table. If any of you would like to write down why Westfield, I'd love to know your story. Because we have people coming here for to be around grandkids and to be around their kids, and I mean that's great. But the young people, why here? And for many years, last 5 or 6 years, I usually heard the very same three things in this order. Number one, great schools. Thank you to all the school people here. Number two was our wonderful trail system, interconnectivity. We can get a lot of places. Number three was Grand Park. And it always came out that way. Then lately, it's begun to be off. It has changed. There, now we're on again. All right, we'll keep that here. So, and what it's changed is this. This has been in the last 2 years. Why are you here in Westfield? And there's a pause. And they say, well, it just feels right here. We visited other cities. We like the size, but it just feels right. It's becoming an intangible. And I really like that. So, to set the stage in that manner, let's dive in briefly to some of the routine stuff that mayors are supposed to talk about in a State of the City speech, all right? Such as city tax rate. Well, thank you to our council and all of our administrative people. The tax rate, city rate just dropped in Westfield. Not a whole lot, don't catch me on it, just a little tiny bit. But what it did, we now have a lower tax rate than our adjoining cities. That means Carmel. Yes, Westfield's city tax rate is lower than Carmel's. Bulletin, breaking news, you don't care, press, that's good. All right, Matt Skelton and his crew have processed a record number of residential and commercial building permits this year. Question I'll always get asked, okay, is Grand Park working? Well, of course, not only is it the thousands and thousands, nearly 1 million visits or more come through that place, very difficult to count. I look at its success based on the reason it was created, and that was to build a commercial tax base. And over the last 5 years, 6 years since it's been open, we can attribute over $700 million in new, that's construction value, attributable to Grand Park. So is it working? Absolutely yes. Is it happening fast enough? Never. It takes 4 years to get a new structure on the tax roll, so we're just now seeing those kind of things coming. You know, we're also beginning to develop not only our economic efforts at the business of sports around Grand Park. You see the business, of course, like the Pacers Arena, you see the Pro-X being built there now. Those are exactly the kind of businesses that we want to build on our unique asset, the business of sports. So we'll be looking at sports organizations, perhaps sports medicine. I hope we can build a little bit more on that. We'll see very shortly. But on the other end of the spectrum, we're looking at building advanced manufacturing. Why? Because advanced manufacturing uses a broad spectrum of employees, and geographically located where we are, we can attract those kind of employees. And the best example we have is the new Bastian Toyota facility that'll open in a couple months, right up north of the Carrington Mortgage Building in North Point, that once it has a new road going through it, Mr. Wilkes and White will be able to count on you to expand that immensely, can we not? So that's been huge. The other thing we're trying to do, building on the presence of Toyota, we've been highly encouraged by the state to work with the Japanese. So we sent a delegation to Omaha a few months ago to a Midwest Japanese gathering, and Mrs. Rubidoux and Todd went out there. The governor happened to be the keynote speaker. He pointed out Todd. He spoke about Grand Park. And after that, the consulate general, the gentleman between Todd and I, who is like the next level below an ambassador, he covers the Midwest, he approached Todd and said, we'd like to get together, talk about economic development, but also Tokyo hosts the Olympics in 2020, I think. He would like to do some kind of a sports arrangement with Japan, children, and Grand Park. Again, let's leverage what our uniqueness is. So we went up there, we had dinner, wonderful dinner, and so we're developing that relationship, and it's working. Here's an announcement you might have missed, in that we have a new company coming in over at Westfield Business Park called Third Dimension, and they are in the forefront of 3D printing. So again, advanced manufacturing, very much looking at it. Highlight connecting the Monon Trail, all right, from Sheridan to downtown Indy. And I'm not sure who looks more goofy, the guy in the hat in the middle or Jim Brainerd, but we had a good time. Anna Gremling from the MPO, who funded a great deal of it, is certainly the highlight of that photograph. And you know, by the construction along Wheeler Road, the Monon Bridge construction has begun. That will be a beautiful structure as you pass through Westfield on 31 and looking to your west. And of course, a huge project that's going to last over several years, that is in all of the planning and all the studies and all that, is the widening of State Road 32 through our downtown. And this is like any expansion project, there'll be some pain, there'll be some challenges. We are also adding a new terrain there. On your left side is the New Jersey Street extension that comes east off of Union and swings north into the new roundabout, because you're looking from East Street west through all of the downtown area there. So that is on schedule. Construction there won't begin probably till 2022, because it takes a long time to widen something through the middle of the downtown. And of course, what we've been working on for 10 years, the crown jewel of the downtown, the Grand Junction Plaza. And what you haven't seen or noticed perhaps is the behind the scenes. The regional detention work to the southwest has been going on for 3 years. A year ago, we built the Mill Street extension around the perimeter. And this past year, after 5 years of getting permits, we actually moved a stream. Yes, it's nearly impossible, but our people got it done. And now the utilities are in there doing a lot of utility movement. So by next summer, we will begin having this unique piece pop out of the ground. New businesses coming downtown. You know the success of our Park Street. If you didn't hear Tony Katz's comments about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I don't know if you still look that up, but I don't listen to him very often. I happen to be listening to him, and I mean, he had visited the field, he visited the Park Street merchants, and he was like, why has nobody ever told me about this? It's a hidden gem. And we have businesses like the Field Brewery that recently opened. I see sitting over here to my right, we have some of the Big Woods people in. We're glad to have you people here. I think we'll see you showing up on the southwest corner of 31 and 32. We welcome you. That'll be fantastic. Keep adding to the eclecticness of our downtown. And of course, we can go on and on about one of our biggest events of the year. After many years of negotiation, we put William Knox and his staff and the entire city staff the great task to host the Indianapolis Colts preseason camp. And it was, the inaugural event was, it was well received by the Colts. I think it was well received by our visitors. And we can all personally take credit for the vast success of what a great unknown was in the spring, and that was the season that they had this year. When they were 1-5, you know, it was a little, gee, do we think we want them back again? They turned that around because of what they learned here in Westfield. And the over 230 volunteers that Angie and her group put together to serve the public and the Colts. And we can take full credit for the highly successful season. And I hope next year, because of that, is going to be fantastic. We also hosted the Big Ten soccer championships out there. You know, that was great because IU won on the men's side. Welcome Riverview, Westfield's first full-service hospital. And we're thrilled to have you here. It's a beautiful structure, beautiful addition to our downtown. Here's somebody people you don't hear about that often. You know, it's our fire guys. We say fire, you know, 75% of what they do is EMS. And they do such a wonderful, wonderful job of that. They hate it when I say this, but you haven't seen a major fire here in a long time. It's because of their preparation, their equipment, their training, and their prevention. And because all of that is paid off, you know, they go through voluntarily a national accreditation process. And they just gained the ISO ranking, I think it was number 2, which is the highest that a city our size across the nation could obtain. And that just points out their hard work, what they're doing. And also, you might know, and be sure to remind your insurance agents, that ranking just improved and should give you a better price on your homeowner's insurance. Life insurance, people? Okay, good. Westfield cops, and you see them a lot. Sometimes, maybe you don't, but they have done just a fantastic job of working on our crime. Matter of fact, our violent crime in Westfield over the past 3 years has decreased 6% in a growing population. And it's because of prevention. It's because of a high profile out on the streets. One of their most innovative things I've seen them come up with was especially this year when we all had to re-examine school safety, because we have the resource officers and we do the training, etc. But they came up with, why don't we, in order to get more of a presence in the schools, let's put our substations in the schools and encourage our officers, instead of sitting in their cars doing their immense amount of paperwork after they stop you, let's put them in the schools. So every school has dedicated space to our officers. It works out great. And I now see other departments beginning to copy that. We've got a lot of new residents. I hope some of you are here today and I haven't had a chance to meet you. But you know, maybe my age and above remember the days we used to have what's called the welcome wagon. Any of you remember that? You were new in town, somebody'd show up on your doorstep with a basket full of maybe coupons and soap and candles and hey, you know, welcome to such and such, and you have any questions? Yeah, this is the trash day here, and here's how you sign up for this and that. Well, we're going to start doing that. We're going to start contacting our new residents and offering to visit with them. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, because we need to make a better connection to our people here. And there again, why Westfield? And it's about a community that cares. As we develop that kind of culture, where we're moving away from stressing the things, the tangible things in our community, and begin to work much harder and diligently on the social aspects of what makes Westfield Westfield. Chief Rush came up with a great analogy I loved. He said, you know, Andy, today our garages are on the front of the house and the porches are in the back, and we come home and we raise the door and we put it down, and then we go to the backyard with our fences around it. And we need to get back to the day where the garage was an afterthought in the back, the porches were on the front, and you gathered out there and you waved at your neighbors and your kids played in the front yard. And yeah, I really like that idea. So what kind of issues do we have that we need to look at? And this is where we're going to get into the heart of the matter. We're going to start looking at our mental and our emotional, our physical needs here in this community, and how we as a community are going to respond to that. You know, we share issues like cities across the state and cities across the nation. Obesity levels, loneliness amongst our seniors, the number of families that are living in poverty. You know, here's a sad note. Whereas most of the country is improving on that, in Indiana we're actually going backwards. But one of the things that we need to work at, and we touched on it with our crime and our traffic safety, we're going to be stepping up efforts on some things that are causing traffic accidents here. I'll call them crashes, because many of them are not accidents. And it's that's something that affects a few people. When it affects, it affects. And I know that we've determined one of the leading causes of accidents in Westfield is distracted driving. We're going to take a hard look at that. And I will tell you that effective immediately, city employees in city-owned vehicles, with the exception of our public safety people, are prohibited from using their cell phones unless they have a hands-free device. And I'd like to see that spread throughout our community, because that is a huge but very hard piece to document. But the thing that concerns me more than anything is the fact that Indiana leads the nation. We're number one in the number of our high school children and junior high that contemplate suicide. Number one in the nation. Here in Westfield, kids that are despaired, kids that have thought about suicide, it's like something like 19%. Right here. If that doesn't shock you, I don't know what does. That is what worries me. And it's also something that I think we can do much about as a community. Just like we've shown with the Westfield Youth Assistance Program. You've heard me talk about that over and over again. Here's this trend too. Think about this. This year, Christine and her crew, where is she? Right there. Their workload increased by 50% this year. In 1 year, more at-risk kids have said, and families have said, help me. And she has utilized the services of something like 115 different social agencies and all. I mean, that was the purpose, right? We clear, and we're a clearinghouse, and we look for how can we keep that kid out of the legal system. And you've heard me say many, many times since the county's gotten involved, all across the county, the number of kids entering the legal system has been cut in half. And the building that the county built several years ago to house juvenile offenders has been repurposed to be used as something else. You remember this document? It was all about what we are supposed to do as a country. And the laws and the Constitution and the Declaration, it was all about that basic human need, the pursuit of happiness. And what exactly does that mean to whom? That's okay. But pursuit of happiness, I want to see happy families in Westfield. I want to see more of that. So we have been very fortunate to begin to look at how can we build on student impact and how can we build on the youth assistance. And Jake Gilbert at the high school has a beautiful program there called Life Ready, works with kids. And we've been looking at a way, how can we put some of these things together, maybe build an umbrella over it that would help fund it. And we've been very fortunate to have some key people. Tanya Harvey has been instrumental in stepping up as a volunteer. Her background is in business, in, I believe, strategic planning in large corporations and implementation. She said, hey, we got a problem, not just here, but based on what Westfield has already done, she sees we can put the pieces together and take that next step forward. So we've been able to, through funding from the Hamilton County Community Foundation, formerly known as the Legacy Group, They funded Westfield Schools, and the city of Westfield pooled the resources and engaged the services of Suzanne Clifford, who is a professional in putting together a new coalition that is going to be built around and called the Wellbeing Coalition of Westfield. It will strike for awareness because, face it, part of this is perception. What is the perception? We have that many kids that are, stressed out? Lack self-confidence? What is it? Social media? I don't know. But there's a lot of non-awareness here that we have the same problems that Indiana and the nation have. So awareness is a huge part. And it's going to look at not just kids, but the full spectrum. The physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and the social. Pardon me. To begin the process, we put a group together, met just this week, and it was a wonderful coalition. We had churches there, healthcare there, mental people there, business people there, government people there, schools, obviously. We met at Washington Woods, and Suzanne began to address us and mapped us out for the next really 3 or 4 months, how we're going to come up with this. And what I wanted to come up with is a plan sometime towards May and June, how this city will once again get together as a community and address this issue. We know we can do it. As I've told these over 50 people that gathered, look, if we make a clear-cut plan of awareness, if we clearly define the problem, and we have a clear-cut path on how to solve it, the people of Westfield will pour their hearts into it, and their time and their effort and their money, because that's what it's going to take. But it's something that a city must address. Just as we have done with youth assistance. You know, there are bills moving through the legislature as we speak to fund and expand the youth assistance program that began in little tiny Westfield, and to take that program all across the state of Indiana. We have done it, and we're going to do it again. So that really is what will become, thank you so much. This is what I want to become the legacy of Westfield. It ain't about things. It's about getting people on that front porch. It's about picking up that kid that needs help, giving them a hug. You know, we sent nearly 50% of our yappers to camps last summer. Kids that would never, ever see the lights of a camp. Can you imagine what that meant to some of those kids? Right here in Westfield. How'd we do it? We raised money and we put it towards a common cause. And I think that is going to be our legacy.
Community, if we try to define that word, it's watching families take care of other families, whether that's through student impact or youth assistance program. We see so much of that just it becomes, wow, what would we do without this community spirit?
So when we moved here 6 years ago, we were really surprised by just how friendly our neighbors were and how welcoming they were. They just kind of latched themselves onto us, which was great when we were first-time homeowners. All the guys around had the tools that I needed and had the know-how to come help me fix my mower because I had no idea what I was doing. So we were just really thankful for not only those resources, but those relationships, just to kind of help usher us into home ownership.
It's just been such a great thing to be surrounded by people that just feel like family. I mean, they have unlocked our door for us when we've needed it. They brought toys for our daughter and food. It's just a great community, and we've loved living here.
I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2012. We knew the community of Westfield was amazing, right? But when you need help, oh my goodness gracious. I always say I cried a lot through my disease, but it wasn't because of the disease. It was in response to being so humbled by the way the community just wrapped their arms around us and helped us shoulder the burden and helped us to walk through a really difficult time. And these are all people from our community who, you know, are friends, certainly, and some family, but sometimes just strangers, you know, who we didn't necessarily know, but who would step in and bring us meals. We never felt alone walking through this because our community is just so amazing.
Personally, we had a tragedy in our family this past summer, and Barb and I lost a 14-year-old grandchild. The turnout, the support, the prayers from this community to our family and uplifting our family was just beyond description. And what that meant to all of my children and all of my grandchildren was beyond phenomenal. And we still feel that support every day.
Actually, one of the neighbors that has been so dear to us, they're moving now, like to Arizona, and they're just actually pretty hard on us. And I think that's probably a good measure of a city or a community, is if you're this sad to see your neighbors go, probably means you're part of something pretty special.
We've spent 18 years here, we're going to spend 18 more and 18 more after that. Our experiences, how the city has enveloped us, it's a sense of belonging. I think, you know, we strive our entire lives to belong to something. It could be to an idea, or to a religion, or to a group, or to a workplace. And for Courtney and I and our boys, we found it 18 years ago here in Westfield, and we will belong for the rest of our lives.
Done by a fellow Northwestern graduate, Mr. Sprinkle. I don't think he's here today, Cameron. Does some beautiful things. Courtney is right here live with us. Right here. Congratulations. We're glad you are here. Thank you for allowing us to tell your story. And I'm just going to close like this. You know, why Westfield? Because it feels good. Good day.